I note the obvious differences in the human family. Some of us are serious, some thrive on comedy. Some declare their lives are lived as true profundity, and others claim they really live the real reality. The variety of our skin tones can confuse, bemuse, delight. Brown and pink and beige and purple, tan and blue and white. I've sailed upon the 7 seas and stopped in every land. I've seen the wonders of the world, not yet one common man. I know 10,000 women called Jane and Mary Jane, but I've not seen any two who really were the same. Mirror twins are different, although their features jibe, and lovers think quite different thoughts while lying side by side. We love and lose in China. We weep on England's moors. We laugh and moan in Guinea, and thrive on Spanish shores. We seek success in Finland, are born and die in Maine. In minor ways we differ, in major we're the same. I note the obvious differences between each sort and type, but we are more alike, my friends, than we are unalike. We are more alike, my friends, than we are unalike. We are more alike, my friends, than we are unalike.
Amazing.
On behalf of the trade organizations, ARIA, NAREP, and NAREB, it is very historic for you to bring us here together. Historic because it's the first time that the Realtor family has included us. There is strength in diversity. And there's weakness in divisiveness. But rest assured that we will be right behind you, Matt, for all your initiatives during your presidency.
This year's Strategic Thinkers Working Group meeting produced a theme that was echoed loudly by virtually every person in the room. Our organization's need to improve its inclusiveness. I know this is a sensitive topic that can be fraught with hazards, but that is exactly where this ride is headed, so buckle up and hang on. We have some amazing female past presidents in our midst, including several with whom I volunteered during my relatively short history of involvement here. But over the last 30 years, only 9 women have served as presidents of this organization. Our 2017 board of directors was 100% white and 28% female. The leadership team is in the middle of at least an 8-year streak of white males. I love and respect every single one of them, but consider the following. Our membership of more than 47,000 is 54% female. In many elections, an 8-point spread would be considered a landslide. Our total state membership is about 5% Asian, which is within about 0.5% of what the state's overall Asian population is. African Americans comprise 6% of our membership. That's less than half that of the African American percentage of the state's total population. And 8% of our members are Latino. That's another group whose proportion of our membership is less than half its percentage of the overall state population. So we know we are severely underrepresenting women and minorities. It is worth noting, however, that with Jeffrey's installation, we now count among our directors a man who is the self-described greatest African-American president in the history of the Champaign County Association of Realtors. He was also our first and only in 2014. But this means we got the door open, right? We can just wait for diverse-looking people to come knocking, and this is going to sort itself out. Not so much. I reached out this past year to recruit a diverse pool of talented and qualified board applicants. I encouraged them to run while making clear I have no direct control over that process. And they learned I am a man of my word when it became clear to most of them that I, in fact, have absolutely no control over that process. Consider the following. We had 6 open at-large director seats this cycle for the 2018 board. 8 non-white applicants were in that pool. 1 was slated. And we are blessed to have Jeffrey joining our board. 4 non-native speakers of English were in that pool. None was slated. 9 women applied, 2 were slated, and we are lucky to have Ayn and Karen lending their talents to this organization. But we're also losing a female board member, so we have a net gain of just 1. At about the same time, take a look at which of our Realtor members from Illinois were selected to be in the elite group of only 19 nationwide for the 2018 National Association of Realtors Leadership Academy. Sarah Ware and Tommy Choi. Congratulations, by the way, you two. Our state has far more people leaving it these days than any other in the country. Immigrants and their children are one of the only groups standing between us and a massive net population loss. 14.2% of our residents, 1 in 7, are immigrants. Another 12%, 1 in 8, have at least one immigrant parent. Our organization has spent hundreds of thousands of dollars cultivating global business alliances and creating a consulate liaison program to make sure that Illinois and its realtors benefit from the people and the capital that flow here from around the world. On the surface, this speaks of working toward an inclusive association, but closer examination shows we have a long way to go since we have in the past rejected qualified, capable, and involved non-native English speakers. We as an association have to get to the point where we can say yes to diverse applicants. If we fail to do so, it undercuts the valuable work that we're already doing, and it sends a clear message that we're not seriously interested in better representing our state and our industry. I'm particularly inspired by immigrant success stories since I am married to one. If you are looking for a quick way to fall in love with America, go talk to an immigrant. There has been no organizational discriminatory intent here, none at all. However, as we prepare to celebrate the 50-year anniversary of the landmark Federal Fair Housing Act of 1968, we must remember that which is impressed upon each of us in our pre-license course and in every renewal cycle. The lack of discriminatory intent does not make it okay if there is a disparate impact on minorities in the outcome. Disparate impact in the absence of discriminatory intent was just upheld as a sustainable cause of action by the U.S. Supreme Court in just the last 2 years in a case out of Texas. But forget for a minute about the legal and moral considerations about diversity. Let's just look purely at organizational self-preservation and nothing else. If we were looking for a roadmap to irrelevancy and organizational extinction, the path would be clear and easy. Fail to recruit and engage minority realtors into the business and into our organization's governance. That's it. The births in the United States shifted to majority-minority in 2013. That majority-minority cohort starts kindergarten during the final weeks of my term. 20 years or so thereafter, they're going to be our client base, but we don't have to wait that long. Millennials today account for a huge portion of our industry's clientele, and 44% of them are non-white, and a slight majority of post-millennials, those under the age of 18, are non-white. I came into this adventure with an open heart, an open mind, and a genuine desire to connect with people who may at first glance appear to have very little in common with me. But as Maya Angelou wrote, and as you heard my beautiful daughter read, we are more alike, my friends, than we are unalike. The Illinois Realtors has long sponsored minority and female-focused real estate organizations like the National Association of Hispanic Real Estate Professionals, NAREP, the Asian Real Estate Association of America, ARIA, Women's Council of Realtors, WCR, and the Dearborn Realtists. The Realtists are the Chicagoland chapter of the National Association of Real Estate Brokers, an African-American trade organization that traces its roots all the way back to Booker T. Washington's National Business League. What a proud and amazing history. These sponsorships by the Illinois Realtors provided me with my very first opportunities to attend events hosted by these organizations, along with other members of the Illinois Realtors leadership team. These organizations have impressed and educated me. I appreciate their distinctive missions that are tailored to their respective constituencies, the crowds they turn out, and the influence they wield. But on a much more personal level, the individuals within each organization have inspired me. I am a better person, and in the year ahead will be a better leader because of the meaningful relationships that I absolutely treasure with some of the many superstars within those organizations. Any journey of this type begins with outreach, and sometimes that has to be done in ways we have not done before. That's why I'm honored to have with me a number of people who have done so much to advance the real estate industry and with whom I'm excited to partner in the years ahead. My friend Courtney Jones from the Dearborn Realtists, Gaspar Flores Jr., 2017 president of NAREP Chicago, now, Vicky wears a lot of hats, so hold your applause. Vicky Silvano, who was an ARIA Chicago past president, 2016 ARIA national past president, and part of 2018 NAR president Elizabeth Mendenhall's expanded leadership team at NAR. Sarah Ware, who you heard from, is a past president of the Women's Council of Realtors Chicago. And Sarah was on stage to pay tribute to the fallen son of my friend Nakia Pippian McGriff, president-elect of the Women's Council of Realtors Illinois. In addition to the Illinois Realtors sponsorships, I am personally a dues-paying member of each of those organizations. My pleasure. I love that I can walk into any of their events and immediately be surrounded by the familiar faces of many friends. On some level, these organizations are competitors insofar as they're competing for dues dollars, sponsorships, events, education, and attendance. But this does not have to be a zero-sum game. That is, their success does not have to come at our expense and vice versa. Moving forward, we have a choice. One option is to maintain the status quo, giving members of these organizations the impression that the Illinois Realtors does not offer meaningful pathways to leadership for minorities and that Hispanics should stick exclusively to NAREP, women to WCR, Asians to ARIA, and African Americans to the Realtist. The alternative option makes clear that the talent pools at these organizations are welcomed, embraced, engaged, appreciated, and have meaningful leadership opportunities within the Illinois Realtors. And those opportunities will complement, not replace, the opportunities at those other organizations. We cannot afford that first option, and it is just flat wrong. Ron Branch, who is here tonight, Ron's a longtime Dearborn Realtist and past national president of NAREB, Dearborn's national parent organization. Ron told me recently the Realtors are the conscience of the real estate industry. Why would he say that? Well, consider that the group formed in Chicago because the local realtor organization refused to admit black members until 1963. 1963. Longtime realtist Frank Williams, who is also a past president of the Chicago Association of Realtors, and whom I got to see installed into their Hall of Fame on Monday, survived an attack on his home while he and his wife and 3 of his kids were in it. A Molotov cocktail exploded on the front porch just a few minutes before his 4th child arrived home. The perpetrators were never prosecuted for an act of terror motivated by the fact that Williams refused to stop soliciting or selling real estate in white neighborhoods. This sounds like the work of the Klan in Birmingham in 1963 or in Philadelphia, Mississippi in 1964. But this was Chicago in 1975. In my world, the illegal practice of redlining, the drawing of race-based geographic lines inside which mortgage lenders would not lend money, was just a topic in a pre-licensed course book and a perennial quiz topic in our CE classes. But many of the realtists have lived through it and deal with the continued fallout nearly 50 years since this was outlawed by that Federal Fair Housing Act. This was not just a private sector lender discrimination issue. The biggest driving force was our own federal government. FHA and VA loans could not be insured in black or integrated neighborhoods. Just last year, a digital collection of those redlining maps was made available to the public online in full, gut-wrenching color. They show the government-created self-fulfilling prophecy. Cut off funds in black neighborhoods on the basis of race, make easy money available in new white suburban communities, and then fund the creation of expressways that cut like a knife through the heart of minority neighborhoods to get white people to their new homes with ease. Today, the realtists are focused on a 2017 redlining variant, ostensibly race-neutral lending practices that have a disparate impact on African Americans. Specifically, they're concerned with lenders imposing overlays that create artificial lending restrictions that go above and beyond the underlying minimum requirements by Freddie, Fannie, and FHA. Courtney Jones worked in mortgage lending before he switched to real estate brokerage to work alongside his wife. He and the Dearborn Realtists are working on solutions to lending challenges that will help create more black homeowners as part of a NAREB nationwide goal of 2 million new black homeowners in the next 5 years. The black homeownership rate in Chicago is barely half that of the white population, sitting at about 38.9%, the lowest since discrimination was outlawed. This is not a realtist problem. This is an opportunity for all Illinois realtors. Helping with this effort means more buyers, more sellers, more owner occupancy, more wealth building, and improved communities. Many of us in the room have depended on our home equity lines of credit to build and sustain our businesses or to improve our homes. The economic and wealth building potential is huge. My friend Zeke Morris, a recent past president of the Chicago Association of Realtors, told me recently the Chicago Association, which has about 14,500 members, has fewer than 2,000 serving the entire southern half of the city. If we partner with the realtors to help increase black homeownership, we could easily launch 1,000 new successful entrepreneurs making a living in real estate in these areas and reinvesting in their communities in a way absentee landlords do not. The National Association of Hispanic Real Estate Professionals, more than 1,000 members strong in Chicagoland, has led the charge for alternative credit scoring models to make homeownership available to the many Hispanics who are credit invisible. That term refers to the fact that many Hispanics have thin credit files or sometimes no score at all because of cultural practices that may include borrowing money from relatives and paying cash for most of their purchases. The Asian Real Estate Association of America has also been advocating along these lines for cultural reasons common among its Asian constituency. Earlier this year, the National Association of Realtors formally joined in that effort. In many areas of our state, the Latino population is the only segment that is growing, and I am not just talking about Chicagoland. This is the case in communities like Danville and Decatur. And in Chicago, Hispanics are now the second largest ethnic group in the city. Creating pathways to Hispanic homeownership is not a NAREP problem. This is an opportunity for Illinois realtors. We need to support NAREP's work to maximize homeownership opportunities for the fastest growing segment of our state's population. All Illinois Realtor members would also benefit from embracing the NAREP 10 Guidelines to Success. That's part of the Hispanic Wealth Project, and you can easily find details on NAREP's website. National Association of Asian Real Estate Professionals, in addition to being an important part of the coalition favoring alternative credit scoring, has recently had a major public policy victory specific to Asian Americans. During Vicky Silvano's year as ARIA's national president, she spearheaded the Like No Other campaign. Until ARIA's recent campaign, the U.S. Census Bureau's quarterly home ownership reports, which provide home ownership statistics segmented by race, had no category for Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. Instead, Asian Americans were simply grouped into a catch-all category called Other. This made Asian Americans invisible in these reports. It caused a damaging lack of attention to be paid by both the government and the private sector to a fast-growing population of 19 million and counting. Starting in July 2016, thanks to ARIA, an Asian category is now on those reports. Congratulations, ARIA. Of interest to every realtor in Illinois is ARIA's aggressive campaign of international trade missions, which sees many of our ARIA Chicago friends overseas promoting foreign investment opportunities in all segments of Illinois real estate. We need to support ARIA's efforts to increase Asian homeownership and to encourage foreign direct investment in Illinois real estate. And on a personal note, I am not going to lie, I made friends with ARIA much faster when I started taking my authentically Asian wife with me to their events. Yes, see? But she now counts among many of her friends, my ARIA buddies. The Women's Council traces its national origin back to 1938 when NAR created a women's division in an effort to empower female real estate professionals. At that time, many local realtor boards didn't admit women. 80 years later, WCR is a powerhouse organization of realtors advancing women as professionals and as leaders within business, the industry, and the communities they serve. I have had the honor of participating on panels at local events and a regional conference in recent months. In the last few weeks alone, I've attended events hosted by the Chicago, the West Suburban, and the Northwest Suburban networks. And just last night, I attended the Illinois installation. Smart men recognize the immense influence that women in this industry wield. And last night, a man was installed as the first WCR Illinois president. I know and respect Brett Decker, and he is committed to the organization's mission of advancing women. I've been particularly inspired by the staggering diversity at every WCR function I've attended. Practitioners from brand new to seasoned veterans, African Americans, immigrants, men, and some touching success stories of brand new realtors who solely credit WCR with going from zero to critical mass when they got into this business. My friend Nakia led the Chicago network in 2017, and she's succeeded by another dear friend, Judy Gibbons. Nakia is also on that state WCR leadership team. Sheena Baker, a young African-American real estate success story. Hey, Sheena. Leads the West Suburban Network. And Kinga Korpaz, a Polish immigrant broker-owner who heads a firm comprised mostly of Polish immigrants, leads the Northwest Suburban Network. Rebecca Thompson leads the entire region of this country for WCR as regional vice president. This is a millennial superstar who joined the Illinois Realtors Board of Directors last year. She paused only ever so briefly to have a child, practically on the eve of being installed as the 2018 president of the Chicago Association of Realtors. I'm going to let you all in on a secret. The Illinois Realtors needs talented women. I've been gathering intel, and I can confirm WCR is stockpiling them. And far too many of them do not know that we exist. So now I've talked about the problem with the status quo here at the Illinois Realtors, and I've highlighted the organizations that are home to much of the talent that we need in the future. So what is the plan? For starters, I can't do it alone. I encourage all of you to seek out involvement in organizations that will be populated with people who do not look like you. I guarantee you will find yourself educated and inspired, as have I. Next, encourage involvement in the Illinois Realtors by the literally hundreds of amazingly talented people, realtors who are active in these other organizations but don't even know we exist. Spread the word about our leadership development program and encourage people to apply. I've been to too many events in the last year where I was immersed in an inclusive group of realtors only to discover they had never even heard of the program. Here's what we're going to do to address the disparate impact issue among minority and female applicants to our board. We've historically provided very little in the way of guidance for how to evaluate candidates. In the absence of clear instructions to the contrary, there would be a natural tendency to evaluate candidates almost entirely based on how well they interviewed. But this is not a performance audition. The nominating committee is not America's Got Talent, and the chair, thank God, is not Simon Cowell. At-large board candidates, at-large candidates are not in line to become the spokesperson for the organization. We will therefore be providing detailed guidance for future nominating committees that will involve weighted scores that de-emphasize the interview performance itself and instead focus on the history involvement with our organization, complementary involvement in other areas of the industry, and whether they help to reach underrepresented segments of our membership and clientele. We'll also be scheduling those committee meetings in the future in a manner that will minimize the time gap between the first group of interviews and the second. A multi-day gap between those interviews quite literally plays tricks on the brain that make it more difficult to impartially rank applicants. Finally, as an organization that we know lags behind the curve in terms of diversity, we always need to be asking ourselves the question, what message does this send? Just because we as an organization do not intend to transmit a discriminatory message does not mean a discriminatory message has not nonetheless been received loud and clear by exactly the segments of members we need to reach. I'm going to close with a story that ties together inclusiveness, personal growth, a little discomfort, and the power of R. Nakia, Pippi, and McGriff and I have very little in the way of common background, but we share a profession and a devotion for our Realtor trade organization. Nakia and I were both in the 2016 National Association of Realtors Leadership Academy as part of a group of only 18 nationwide. That's a group that gets to spend lots of time together over that year, and getting to know Nakia through that shared experience was a great blessing. Back home among the cornfields, I listen to Chicago talk radio, so I follow closely the news in and around the city. On average, 12 people a week are murdered in Chicago. I hear the headlines every day. And then one day, those awful headlines became personal. My friend's 23-year-old son, Xavier Joy, was gunned down, apparently for nothing more than his cell phone, and left to die in a parking lot just a block from his home in the Woodlawn neighborhood back in June. This happened to a friend and a treasured member of my Realtor family. The memorial service that Nakia and the rest of the family orchestrated and pulled off less than a week later was superhuman. It was at the Gothic cathedral-inspired Rockefeller Memorial Chapel on the University of Chicago campus, packed with more than 1,000 attendees. There was the army of City Year AmeriCorps student volunteers there to pay their respects to their fellow City Year alum. There were 2 sitting members of Congress who spoke. There was the letter from President Obama read by a representative of his foundation. There was the music, some of the most amazing I have ever heard performed live. There were moving tributes from both parents. There was a moment of completely raw emotion when Xavier's former high school principal from Whitney Young, the same school Nakia attended, cried out through tears, "As an educator and Xavier's principal, I don't want to have to bury another one of my students. This is a woman who had been through this before." There was a divinely inspired message from the pastor who had also been through this before, who could have easily lashed out with a geyser of righteous anger. But instead, he focused on the celebration of a too short life well lived, saying to the crowd, "I know it hurts. I know there's pain. The reason we are here in this historic hall of worship is to give God thanks and praise for 23 years of having Xavier, who brought so much joy to our lives." And finally, there was the New Orleans-style jazz funeral procession that spilled out onto 59th Street, where the slow, sorrowful jazz tunes gave way to the joyous send-off of When the Saints Go Marching In. And then there were the Realtors. They turned out by the hundreds to grieve with one of their own. Nakia is one of those special few who has a history of involvement with the Chicago Association, Women's Council, Illinois Realtors, National Association of Realtors, Dearborn Realtists. Realtors turned out in droves to stand with their friend, white, Black, Republican, Democrat, Hispanic, and Asian. This was the Realtor family we need to be. I hope to enjoy this life for a great many more years, but when it is over, I want to have a send-off just like that. I've heard countless others who witnessed that memorial express exactly the same sentiment. Now, fast forward to a couple of weeks ago, Nakia texted me early in the week asking if I would be available to volunteer with the Crime Stoppers neighborhood canvass of the area where Xavier was murdered. I will admit to having a moment of hesitation, and Nakia, for her part, probably had several moments of hesitation before issuing an invitation to somebody like me who might as well come from some other planet. I had no idea how many people would be there or who would be there. I knew only that I was going to a location where a completely innocent young man was gunned down in the street with the murderer still on the loose. But my friend asked me to be there, and that was all that mattered. It was a perfect morning. There were about 19 of us, plus a couple Crime Stoppers volunteers that gathered and then scattered in groups of 2 or 3, distributing more than 1,000 flyers around that neighborhood. The goal was to make the case personal to somebody who may have information that could help catch the killer. I was completely welcomed and quickly at peace, despite being literally and figuratively a very long way from home. That group included 3 other close realtor friends, in addition to Nakia and me, Marky, Carrie, and Sarah. After the flyers had all been distributed, most of the group stayed together for a late lunch, and by the time I pointed my car outbound on the Dan Ryan, I truly felt like there was nowhere better on earth for me to have been that day. Nakia, thank you for including me in that group and in that effort, and I remain committed to doing anything I can to help positive change come from such a terrible loss. I also want to let you know that your NAR Leadership Academy class just this week contributed $1,500 more to City Year in Xavier's memory. The Realtor family tree has branches that extend virtually everywhere. While we cannot bring back Nakia's son or single-handedly end the epidemic of gun violence, our work is sacred and meaningful. We build neighborhoods, cultivate communities of homeowners. We grow small businesses virtually everywhere realtors can be found. We're the professionals who expertly guide our clients through transactional minefields to help them achieve the American dream of home ownership and help them unlock the wealth-building potential that comes with it. Most of us will go anywhere or do anything to help a client, a neighbor, a fellow realtor. We work crazy hours, often for crazy people, and most of us never have any guaranteed pay of any kind. We are here in this room because we realize 47,000 of us joined together can accomplish infinitely more good for our industry and our clients than we could possibly accomplish apart. We are more alike, my friends, than we are unalike. I thank God for my realtor family, and I look forward to serving with you all in the year ahead. May God bless the Illinois Realtors.